The massive throne room of the Zephyrian Empire stretched for hundreds of meters, its walls carved from black crystal that pulsed with energy. Emperor Vextal sat on his throne made of conquered ship hulls, his 8-foot frame covered in scales that shifted from deep green to angry red as he listened to the reports. His yellow eyes, each the size of a human fist, focused on the holographic display floating before him. Admiral Korthzek stood at attention, his own impressive form dwarfed by the Emperor's presence. The battle-scarred Zephyrian had conquered 17 star systems in his career, each victory adding new scars to his armored hide. Today, however, he brought news of something unusual. "My Emperor, our scouts have discovered a new species in the Outer Rim territories," Korthzek reported, his voice a deep rumble that echoed through the chamber. "They call themselves humans. They have established colonies on 12 worlds and operate a small fleet of primitive vessels." The Emperor's claws tapped against his throne, creating sparks where they struck metal. "Primitive, you say? Show me. They're ships." The hologram shifted to display human vessels captured by long-range sensors. The ships looked crude compared to Zephyrian biotechnology. Where Zephyrian vessels grew like living creatures with smooth organic curves, human ships appeared to be assembled from basic metal plates. Their hulls showed obvious welding marks and external components that any civilized species would integrate seamlessly into their designs. "These metal boxes dare to claim territory in our galaxy?" The Emperor's voice carried the threat of violence that had made him ruler of half the known worlds. "What weapons do they possess?" "Kinetic projectiles, my lord, simple missiles with chemical explosives. Their energy weapons appear to be basic plasma cannons far inferior to our bio-integrated systems. Our analysis suggests their technology is at least 3 centuries behind our current capabilities." Emperor Vextal stood from his throne, his massive form casting shadows across the room. The other members of his war council stepped back instinctively. When the Emperor was angry, people died. When he was contemplating conquest, entire worlds burned. "Contact their leadership," he commanded. "Offer them the chance to surrender before we demonstrate why we rule this galaxy." Meanwhile, in the cramped bridge of the TFS Liberty, Captain Jake Mitchell read the incoming transmission with growing amusement. The Zephyrian message was exactly what the intelligence reports had predicted: arrogant, threatening, and completely underestimating human capabilities. "Sir, we're receiving the official ultimatum now," reported Lieutenant Commander Kate Adams from her position at the communication station. The young officer struggled to keep her expression neutral as she read the alien demands. "Let me guess," Mitchell said, leaning back in his captain's chair. "Submit to their rule or face annihilation?" "That's the basic idea, sir, though they used a lot more words to say it. Something about our pathetic metal constructions being no match for their superior bioorganic technology. They want a response within 72 hours. Chief Engineer Amy Rodriguez looked up from her console, where she had been monitoring the ship's systems. "Captain, should I start the scared human routine? Maybe send some panicked engineering reports about our inferior weapons?" Mitchell grinned. The crew of the Liberty had been practicing this performance for months. Every human ship in the Outer Rim had been carefully designed to appear primitive to alien observers. Their true capabilities remained hidden beneath layers of deliberate misdirection. "Not yet, Amy. Let's see how far they want to push this." "Kate, send a response. Tell them we need time to consider their generous offer." On Earth, Admiral Lisa Harper sat in the Terran Defense Command Center, watching the same transmission on her main screen. The underground facility buzzed with activity as analysts processed intelligence reports from across human space. Unlike the cramped military vessels operating in the Rim territories, this command center showcased some of humanity's real technological achievements. Holographic displays showed real-time information from sensors placed throughout the galaxy. Quantum communication arrays allowed instantaneous contact with human ships regardless of distance. Most impressive of all, the strategic planning computers could simulate millions of battle scenarios in seconds, accounting for variables that would take alien civilizations months to calculate. "Ma'am, the Zephyrian fleet is moving into position," reported Colonel Ben Turner from his tactical station. The veteran Marine had fought in the Centauri conflicts and knew better than most what humans could accomplish when properly motivated. They're bringing their primary battle group, 15 bioships including their flagship. Harper nodded, her expression thoughtful. Any word from Dr. Carter's team? The Advanced Research Division reports all systems ready for field testing. They're particularly excited about demonstrating the new gravitational manipulation devices. The Admiral smiled. Dr. Helen Carter and her researchers had been developing new weapon systems specifically for this moment. The Zephyrians would provide the perfect opportunity to test theories that had only existed in computer simulations. Send word to Captain Mitchell. He has authorization to proceed with Operation Underdog. Remind him that the whole galaxy will be watching. Back in Zephyrian space, War Commander Sithron prepared his ground forces for what he expected to be a quick campaign. The reptilian warrior had never been defeated in personal combat, and saw no reason to expect anything different from these humans. His soldiers loaded their bioweapons and checked their adaptive armor, equipment that had proven superior to every enemy they had encountered. "Commander, the Emperor wants a public demonstration," Admiral Korthzek informed him through the communication link. "This battle will be broadcast across all galactic networks. Make sure the humans understand the price of defying our empire." Sithron's scarred face twisted into what humans might recognize as a smile. "It will be my pleasure, Admiral. How long do you estimate the battle will last?" "Our analysts predict complete human surrender within 6 hours of engagement. Their primitive vessels cannot possibly withstand our bioship's adaptive capabilities." The communication ended, leaving Sithron to contemplate the coming victory. He had no way of knowing that human analysts had been studying Zephyrian tactics for years, carefully noting how their bioships adapted to different threats. Every Zephyrian victory had been recorded and analyzed by human observers who remained undetected at the edges of each battle. As news of the challenge spread across the galaxy, other alien species watched with interest. The Stellar Federation had lost 3 worlds to Zephyrian expansion, and would welcome any setback to their aggressive neighbors. The Kythera Collective maintained official neutrality, but secretly hoped both empires would weaken each other in the coming conflict. On human colonies throughout the Rim, civilians received news of the challenge with remarkable calm. Children continued playing their games while parents went about their daily work. The galaxy interpreted this composure as either admirable courage or dangerous ignorance of the threat they faced. None of them suspected the truth. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since their first contact with galactic civilization. The coming battle would reveal capabilities that would reshape the balance of power among the stars. The neutral space station Nexus Prime floated in the void between territories, its massive structure serving as a meeting place for different species across the galaxy. Built by the ancient architects before they vanished into deep space, the station maintained perfect environmental controls for dozens of different alien biologies. Today, it would host negotiations that could determine the fate of 2 civilizations. Captain Jake Mitchell walked through the station's corridors, flanked by his small diplomatic team. Chief Engineer Amy Rodriguez carried a briefcase filled with technical specifications, all carefully edited to hide humanity's true capabilities. Lieutenant Commander Kate Adams recorded everything with hidden sensors, gathering intelligence on Zephyrian technology and behavior patterns. The meeting room itself was designed to impress. Crystalline walls provided a perfect view of the surrounding star field, while the table was carved from a single piece of living rock that responded to the emotions of those seated around it. Currently, it glowed a deep red that reflected the aggressive mood of the Zephyrian delegation. War Commander Sithron dominated the space with his presence. Standing 8 feet tall, his scaled hide bore the scars of 100 battles. His claws, each longer than a human finger, drummed against the table surface as he studied the humans with yellow predator eyes. 2 junior officers flanked him, their own impressive forms making the human delegation appear small and fragile. "So," Sithron began, his voice a deep rumble that made the table vibrate. "These are the creatures who think they can claim territory in our galaxy." His gaze fixed on Mitchell with the intensity of a hunter examining prey. "You appear even more primitive than our intelligence report suggested. Mitchell took his seat calmly, showing none of the fear that Cithron expected. We prefer to think of ourselves as practical rather than primitive. Our ships may look simple, but they get the job done. Simple, Cithron repeated, his scarred features twisting into a predatory smile. Is that what humans call technology that belongs in a museum? Your vessels are assembled from basic alloys with crude welding techniques. Our bioships grow their hulls from living metal that adapts to any threat. Amy Rodriguez looked appropriately impressed as she opened her briefcase and began reviewing the technical specifications they had prepared for this meeting. Every document had been carefully crafted to reinforce Zephyrian assumptions about human inferiority. Their weapons appeared to be chemical-based explosives with limited guidance systems. Their armor looked like simple steel plating with basic energy absorption capabilities. These are our current ship designs, Amy said, sliding the documents across the table. As you can see, we use conventional materials and established engineering principles. The Zephyrian officers examined the specifications with growing confidence. Everything confirmed their initial assessment. Human technology was centuries behind their own bio-integrated systems. Their plasma cannons were weak compared to stellar energy weapons. Their defensive systems relied on thick armor rather than adaptive shielding. Pathetic, declared one of the junior officers. Our smallest patrol craft could destroy your largest battleship. Kate Adams leaned forward slightly, playing her role as a nervous communications officer. War Commander, perhaps we could discuss the terms of engagement. Our leadership is very concerned about avoiding unnecessary casualties. Cithron's predatory smile widened. Human concern for casualties was exactly the weakness he had expected from a species soft enough to use crude metal ships. In Zephyrian culture, strength was everything. A species that worried about losses before a battle had already accepted defeat. The terms are simple, he announced. Your fleet will meet ours in the Kepler 442 system. Single combat between our forces, with the losing species accepting permanent subordination to the victor. We will allow your civilians to watch as we demonstrate the price of challenging superior beings. Mitchell nodded as if considering the proposal carefully. And if we were to decline this challenge? Then we will systematically destroy every human colony in this sector. Your people will learn submission through suffering rather than through the mercy of quick defeat. The human delegation exchanged glances that the Zephyrians interpreted as fear and uncertainty. In reality, Mitchell and his officers were following a carefully rehearsed script designed to reinforce alien overconfidence. Every hesitation and worried look was calculated to make their opponents underestimate human resolve. We'll need to consult with our leadership, Mitchell said finally. This is a decision that affects our entire species. You have 48 hours, Cithron declared, standing to his full intimidating height. Use that time to prepare your primitive vessels for destruction. Perhaps your deaths will serve as entertainment for the other species watching our demonstration. As the Zephyrian delegation left the meeting room, Kate Adams activated her hidden recording devices to capture their conversations. The aliens spoke freely about their battle plans, confident that human technology couldn't possibly intercept their communications. They discussed which ships would lead the assault and how quickly they expected to break human resistance. Did you see how they reacted when we mentioned casualties? One officer asked. These creatures are even weaker than the Altarian pacifists we conquered last year. The Emperor will be pleased, Cithron replied. A quick victory here will demonstrate our power to the remaining neutral species. Fear of our capabilities will bring more worlds into the Empire without the need for actual conquest. Back on Earth, Admiral Harper reviewed the intelligence reports from Nexus Prime while coordinating with military commanders across human space. The underground command center had become the hub of humanity's greatest deception. Every detail of Operation Underdog was monitored and adjusted in real time. The Zephyrians are moving their entire primary fleet, reported Colonel Turner from his strategic analysis station. 15 bioships including their flagship Apex Predator. They're also bringing support vessels and medical ships to treat their wounded after the battle. Dr. Helen Carter looked up from her research station, where quantum equations covered multiple holographic displays. They won't need medical ships after our weapons hit them. The gravitational distortion devices will leave nothing large enough to require treatment. Harper smiled at the scientist's confidence but remained focused on the larger strategic picture. What about the observer ships? How many species are planning to watch this demonstration? At least 12 major powers will have vessels at safe distances, Turner replied. The Stellar Federation, the Kythera Collective, and several smaller alliances. They're expecting either a massacre or a miracle. They'll get the miracle, Harper said. But they won't understand how we accomplished it until it's too late for anyone to prepare countermeasures. The next 48 hours saw frantic activity throughout human space as ships moved into position for the coming battle. To alien observers monitoring human communications, it appeared that Earth was desperately trying to gather every available vessel for a last stand against superior forces. Emergency broadcasts called for volunteer crews, while military factories worked around the clock to produce additional weapons and armor. What the aliens couldn't detect were the real preparations taking place. Human ships shed their disguised outer hulls to reveal advanced weapon systems hidden beneath layers of conventional-looking armor. Crews trained on technologies that violated several supposed laws of physics. Most importantly, the quantum communication network allowed perfect coordination between vessels separated by light-years of space. Captain Mitchell returned to the TFS Liberty to find his crew putting the finishing touches on their battle preparations. The ship's external appearance remained unchanged, but its internal systems had been completely reconfigured. Hidden weapons pods were loaded with projectiles that could punch through bioship armor like paper. The navigation system had been upgraded with spatial manipulation capabilities that would allow impossible maneuvers during combat. "Are we ready to show them what humans can really do?" Mitchell asked as he took his position on the bridge. "Amy." Rodriguez grinned from her engineering station. "Sir, we're about to give them a physics lesson they'll never forget." The stage was set for a battle that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of human capabilities. The Kepler 442 system had been chosen for its strategic visibility. Multiple jump points allowed easy access for observer vessels, while the system's twin stars provided dramatic lighting for what the Zephyrians expected to be a spectacular demonstration of their military superiority. Asteroid fields offered tactical complexity. Though most alien strategists believed the battle would end before such details mattered, Admiral Sekthara commanded the Zephyrian fleet from the bridge of her flagship Apex Predator. The massive bioship stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length, its living hull pulsing with organic energy systems that could adapt to any threat. Weapon ports along its sides channeled pure stellar plasma, while its regenerative armor could heal damage faster than most enemies could inflict it. "Status report," Sekthara commanded, her scaled features focused on the tactical displays surrounding her command throne. "All ships report ready for combat," replied her tactical officer. "The humans have arrived with 30 vessels just as their communications indicated. They appear to be maintaining defensive formation." Through the bioship's living view screens, Sekthara could see the human fleet arranged in what appeared to be a protective cluster. The TFS Liberty led the formation, surrounded by vessels with names like Intrepid, Defiance, and Resolute. Compared to the organic curves of Zephyrian bioships, the human vessels looked like crude metal boxes, assembled by primitive engineers. "Have they responded to our final surrender demand?" Sekthara asked. "Negative, Admiral." Captain Mitchell's last transmission stated that humans prefer to settle disputes through action rather than words. The Admiral's predatory smile revealed rows of sharp teeth. Human bravado would make their defeat even more satisfying. "Begin the demonstration. Show the galaxy what happens to species that challenge Zephyrian supremacy." At the edge of the system, a dozen observer ships from various alien civilizations maintained safe distances while recording everything through long-range sensors. Representatives of the Stellar Federation watched with particular interest, hoping to see their aggressive neighbors suffer a setback. The Kythera Collective maintained official neutrality, but secretly analyzed both fleets for potential threats to their own territories. Captain Mitchell stood on the bridge of the TFS Liberty, watching the Zephyrian fleet begin its approach. His Crew moved with calm efficiency, showing none of the panic that alien observers expected from an outmatched force. Amy Rodriguez monitored the ship's hidden systems from her engineering station, while Kate Adams coordinated communications with the rest of the human fleet. "Incoming transmission from the Apex Predator," Kate reported. "Admiral Sekthara wants to speak with you directly." "Put her on screen," Mitchell ordered. The Zephyrian Admiral's imposing form filled the main display, her yellow eyes gleaming with predatory anticipation. Behind her, the bioship's living bridge pulsed with organic energy that made human technology appear even more primitive by comparison. "Captain Mitchell," Sekthara began, her voice carrying the confidence of countless victories. "You have seen our fleet and our capabilities. This is your final opportunity to surrender before we demonstrate why the Zephyrian Empire rules this galaxy." Mitchell appeared to consider the offer carefully before responding. "Admiral, I appreciate your concern for human welfare. However, we've come this far and feel obligated to see how this situation develops." The response clearly frustrated Sekthara, who had expected either immediate surrender or desperate defiance. Human calm in the face of overwhelming odds suggested either remarkable courage or dangerous ignorance of the threat they faced. "Very well," she declared. "You may watch as we vaporize your primitive vessels one by one. Perhaps the surviving crews will reconsider their position." The transmission ended, leaving Mitchell alone with his crew. Around him, the bridge hummed with hidden activity as advanced systems prepared for combat. What the Zephyrians couldn't detect was the quantum communication network linking every human ship, allowing coordination that approached telepathic precision. "All ships report ready," Amy announced from her station. "Hidden weapons are online, and spatial manipulation drives are charged." "Excellent," Mitchell replied. "Let's show them what human engineering can accomplish when we stop pretending to be primitive." The Zephyrian fleet began its attack with a display designed to intimidate rather than destroy. Bioships fired plasma beams at nearby asteroids, vaporizing chunks of rock the size of human destroyers. Their adaptive armor shifted through different configurations, demonstrating how Zephyrian technology could counter any known weapon system. "Impressive," Lieutenant Commander Kate Adams observed with apparent nervousness. "Their bioships can regenerate damage and adapt to threats in real time. How are we supposed to fight something like that?" Her performance was perfectly calculated to reinforce Zephyrian confidence, while hidden sensors throughout the human fleet analyzed alien capabilities in unprecedented detail. Every energy signature and structural weakness was cataloged by computers that could process information faster than Zephyrian bio-neural networks. Admiral Sekthara ordered her fleet into attack formation, confident that human resistance would collapse within minutes. The bioships moved with organic grace, their living hulls flowing like predators preparing to strike. Weapon ports glowed with stellar energy, while defensive systems adapted to counter the primitive kinetic weapons they expected from human vessels. "Fire, warning shots," Sekthara commanded. "Let them see what real weapons can accomplish." Plasma beams lanched through space, carefully aimed to miss human ships while demonstrating their destructive potential. Where the energy struck empty space, it created brief stellar flares that could be seen from the observer ships at the system's edge. The display was exactly what Zephyrian strategy required: overwhelming proof of superior firepower that would break enemy morale before actual combat began. The human response surprised everyone watching. Instead of retreating or attempting to negotiate, the human fleet began moving into what appeared to be an even tighter defensive formation. Ships clustered together as if seeking mutual protection, a tactic that made them easier targets for Zephyrian weapons. "They're grouping for mutual support," Sekthara's tactical officer reported with satisfaction. "This formation will allow us to destroy multiple vessels with concentrated fire." What the Zephyrians didn't understand was that human ships were actually positioning themselves for a maneuver that had never been attempted in galactic warfare. Hidden drives throughout the fleet synchronized their output, while quantum computers calculated spatial coordinates with impossible precision. "Beginning final approach," Sekthara announced across all galactic communication frequencies. Observer vessels are advised to maintain safe distances while we demonstrate the consequences of challenging Zephyrian authority. The bioships accelerated toward the human fleet, their weapon systems charging for what should have been a decisive first strike. Plasma cannons prepared to fire concentrated beams that could vaporize human ships in seconds. Adaptive armor configured itself to absorb the kinetic impacts that primitive human weapons would surely attempt. Captain Mitchell watched the approaching enemy fleet with calm satisfaction. Everything was proceeding exactly according to human planning. The Zephyrians had positioned themselves perfectly for the demonstration that Earth strategists had been preparing for months. All ships confirm ready status, Kate Adams reported. Quantum coordination network is operating at full efficiency. Spatial manipulation drives show green across the board, Amy Rodriguez added from her engineering station. We can execute the maneuver on your command. Mitchell smiled as he watched the confident Zephyrian advance. Execute Operation Underdog. Show them what happens when humans decide to stop playing games. What happened next would be remembered throughout galactic history as the moment when humanity revealed its true place among the stars. The transformation began without warning. One moment the human fleet appeared clustered together in desperate defense. The next moment physics itself seemed to bend around their vessels. Space twisted and folded as hidden drives manipulated the fundamental structure of reality, allowing human ships to move in ways that violated every principle of known science. Admiral Sekthara watched in shock as the TFS Liberty simply vanished from her sensors, only to reappear directly behind her flagship an instant later. Around the battlefield, human vessels executed impossible maneuvers that left Zephyrian targeting systems completely confused. Ships that had been grouped together suddenly surrounded the entire alien fleet in a three-dimensional formation that should have taken hours to achieve. Report, Sekthara demanded, her confident demeanor cracking as tactical displays showed human ships in positions that defied logic. Unknown technology, Admiral, her tactical officer replied, his voice tight with confusion. They appear to be manipulating space-time itself. Our sensors cannot track their movement patterns. The Zephyrian bioships, designed to adapt to conventional threats, found themselves facing weapons and tactics that existed outside their evolutionary parameters. Plasma cannons that had been aimed at clustered targets now fired at empty space, while their intended victims attacked from completely different directions. Captain Mitchell stood calmly on the Liberty's bridge as his ship materialized directly above the apex predator. Around him, his crew worked with the casual efficiency that had characterized human operations throughout the outer rim. What alien observers had mistaken for primitive simplicity was actually the confidence of a species that had solved problems their enemies couldn't even comprehend. Target their primary weapon systems, Mitchell ordered. Let's show them what human kinetic weapons can accomplish when properly applied. The Liberty's hidden weapons pods opened to reveal projectiles that looked deceptively simple compared to Zephyrian energy weapons. These weren't the crude missiles that human intelligence reports had described. Instead, they were kinetic penetrators accelerated to near light speed by technologies that made Zephyrian plasma cannons look like primitive torches. The first projectile struck the apex predator's main weapon array with the force of a small asteroid impact. The bioship's adaptive armor, designed to absorb and redirect energy weapons, proved completely useless against kinetic force delivered at relativistic velocities. The living hull simply vaporized around the impact point, creating a crater that exposed the ship's internal systems to space. Impossible, Sekthara whispered as damage reports flooded her command station. No known technology can accelerate solid matter to those velocities. Her shock deepened as she realized that the human attack was just beginning. Throughout the battlefield, other human vessels revealed weapons that challenged everything Zephyrian science considered possible. Commander Rick Davis of the TFS Intrepid deployed clouds of self-replicating nanobots that infiltrated bioship hulls and began converting organic systems into more nanobots. The sight of proud Zephyrian vessels literally consuming themselves from within broke the morale of crews who had never experienced defeat. Bioships that had regenerated from massive damage found themselves helpless against microscopic invaders that turned their own adaptive capabilities against them. Dr. Helen Carter's most exotic weapons proved their worth when Captain Laura Bennett's TFS Resolute fired beams that temporarily altered the laws of physics in localized regions. Zephyrian plasma weapons, dependent on stable energy relationships, began exploding inside their own bioships as the fundamental constants that governed their operations shifted randomly. All ships target their command vessels, Mitchell ordered through the quantum communication network. Let's end this demonstration before they adapt to our capabilities. The human fleet moved with coordination that seemed telepathic to alien observers. Ships appeared and disappeared across the battlefield, striking targets with weapons that defied classification while avoiding Zephyrian return fire through impossible maneuvers. What had begun as a simple battle had become a physics lesson that left the galaxy's most advanced civilizations questioning everything they thought they knew about technology and warfare. Admiral Sekthara found herself fighting not just for victory, but for basic comprehension of what was happening around her. Her bioships, evolved through centuries of conquest, proved helpless against enemies that operated according to different rules entirely. Adaptive armor that could counter any known weapon became useless when faced with attacks that redefined the nature of matter and energy. Communications from the human fleet, her tactical officer reported, his voice barely steady. Captain Mitchell's calm face appeared on the main display, showing none of the stress that should have accompanied such an intense battle. Behind him, the Liberty's bridge operated with the same casual efficiency that had characterized human activities throughout the conflict. Admiral Sekthara, Mitchell began, his tone conversational rather than triumphant. I believe this demonstration has provided sufficient evidence of human capabilities. Are you prepared to discuss terms for ending hostilities? The offer stunned Sekthara more than the impossible weapons had. In Zephyrian culture, victory meant complete domination of the defeated enemy. Yet these humans seemed more interested in ending the conflict than in demonstrating their superiority through continued violence. Terms? She managed to ask. Safe, passage for your surviving vessels and medical assistance for your wounded crews, Mitchell replied. Humanity seeks peaceful coexistence with all species, but we respond decisively to aggression. Around the battlefield, human ships had ceased their attacks despite maintaining tactical superiority. Zephyrian bioships that should have been destroyed floated dead in space, their crews unconscious but alive. The nanobots had stopped their consumption at precise points that disabled the vessels without killing their occupants. At the edge of the system, observer ships from dozens of civilizations recorded everything in stunned silence. The Stellar Federation's representatives began emergency communications with their homeworlds, warning that humanity represented a technological paradigm shift that could reshape galactic politics. The Cathera Collective's observers started analyzing human tactics for potential applications to their own military doctrine. War Commander Cithron, aboard one of the few Zephyrian ships still capable of movement, stared at the tactical displays, with the expression of a predator who had suddenly discovered he was prey. Everything he had believed about combat, technology, and the natural order of species had been overturned in the span of minutes. Sir, one of his surviving officers reported quietly, the humans are transmitting medical supplies and technical assistance. They're offering to help repair our damaged vessels. The gesture completed Cithron's psychological defeat more effectively than any weapon could have. These creatures that his empire had dismissed as primitive were now offering aid to the forces that had come to destroy them. The contradiction challenged everything Zephyrian culture had taught about strength, weakness, and the proper relationship between species. Admiral, Mitchell continued, his image still displayed on screens throughout the Zephyrian fleet, we understand that this outcome may surprise your leadership. Please inform Emperor Vextal that humanity is willing to establish formal diplomatic relations based on mutual respect and peaceful coexistence. Sekthara found herself nodding agreement before she fully understood what she was accepting. The alternative, continued resistance against enemies who could manipulate the laws of physics, offered no possibility of survival, much less victory. We accept your terms, she said finally, the words feeling strange in her mouth. Throughout the human fleet, crews celebrated their victory with characteristic restraint. There were no triumphant broadcasts or demands for tribute. Instead, human ships began implementing the medical assistance they had promised, treating former enemies with the same casual competence they had shown in battle. The galaxy would never be the same. The formal surrender ceremony took place aboard the TFS Liberty 3 hours after the battle ended. Admiral Sekithara, her once proud bearing diminished by defeat, stood before Captain Mitchell in the ship's main conference room. The contrast between the two commanders illustrated everything that had changed in the galaxy's power structure. Where Sekithara's bio-enhanced physique had once intimidated enemies, she now appeared oddly primitive compared to Mitchell's calm confidence. The human captain wore a simple uniform that revealed no obvious technological augmentation, yet he commanded weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics. His crew moved with the same casual efficiency they had shown during battle, treating the surrender as just another task to be completed professionally. "Admiral Sekithara," Mitchell began, his tone respectful rather than triumphant. "On behalf of humanity, I accept your fleet's surrender. Your wounded will receive immediate medical attention, and we'll provide technical assistance to repair your damaged vessels for the journey home." The words struck Sekithara like physical blows. In centuries of Zephyrian expansion, defeated enemies had always faced death or slavery. The concept of victorious forces offering aid to their former opponents challenged everything she understood about warfare and conquest. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We came here to destroy your species. Why do you offer mercy?" Mitchell considered the question carefully before responding. "Because destroying you serves no useful purpose. Humanity gains nothing from adding to the galaxy's suffering. We prefer to resolve conflicts through demonstration rather than annihilation." The surrender ceremony was broadcast across galactic communication networks, reaching billions of beings who had expected to witness humanity's destruction. Instead, they watched human medical teams working alongside Zephyrian crews to treat the wounded. Human engineers shared repair techniques that could restore damaged bioships to full functionality. Emperor Vextal received the news in his crystal throne room, surrounded by advisors who struggled to comprehend their empire's first major defeat. The holographic recording showed human vessels performing maneuvers that violated established laws of physics, while treating their defeated enemies with unexpected compassion. "How is this possible?" the Emperor demanded, his scaled features twisted with rage and confusion. "Our bioships have conquered dozens of star systems. How can primitive metal boxes defeat technology evolved over millennia?" None of his advisors could provide satisfactory answers. The human weapons operated on principles that Zephyrian science couldn't classify, much less counter. More disturbing was the psychological impact of defeat at the hands of creatures they had dismissed as inferior. The foundation of Zephyrian supremacy had cracked, and word of their defeat was already spreading throughout their conquered territories. On Earth, President Martha Collins addressed the global population from the steps of the Capitol building. Unlike the triumphant victory speeches that might have been expected, her words focused on humanity's commitment to peaceful exploration and scientific advancement. "Today's events demonstrate that we can defend ourselves when necessary," Collins said to the assembled reporters and citizens. "However, our goal remains the same: to explore the galaxy, learn from other species, and contribute to the advancement of all sentient life." The president's measured response reflected humanity's strategic approach to their new situation. Admiral Harper and her staff had spent years planning not just for military victory, but for the diplomatic challenges that would follow. Revealing. Advanced technology, while maintaining an image of peaceful intent, required careful balance. Ambassador Carol Wright led the first official diplomatic mission to the Zephyrian capital world 3 weeks after the battle. Her team included scientists, engineers, and cultural specialists trained to establish productive relationships with former enemies. The Zephyrians, still struggling to understand their defeat, received the human delegation with a mixture of respect and apprehension. "We come not as conquerors," Wright explained to the assembled Zephyrian leadership, "but as neighbors seeking mutual understanding. Humanity offers to share defensive technologies with species threatened by aggressive expansion, while learning from your achievements in bioengineering and adaptive systems. The offer represented a fundamental shift in galactic politics. For the first time in centuries, a species capable of dominating others chose cooperation over conquest. Other civilizations watched carefully as preliminary agreements were signed between former enemies. War Commander Sithron experienced the most dramatic personal transformation. 3 months after the battle, he walked through the streets of New York City as part of a cultural exchange program designed to build understanding between species. The Zephyrian warrior who had expected to conquer humanity now observed humans going about their daily lives with the same casual competence they had shown in battle. Children played in Central Park while their parents worked on projects that casually violated supposed laws of physics. Street vendors sold food prepared with replicator technology that could rearrange matter at the molecular level. Students attended universities where freshman courses covered theories that Zephyrian scientists considered impossible. Your species treats the impossible as routine, Sithron observed to his human guide, Dr. Helen Carter, as they watched children playing with toys that manipulated gravity for entertainment. We don't see it as impossible, Carter replied with a smile. Just problems that require creative solutions. Your bioengineering achievements would have seemed impossible to us a century ago. The exchange programs became a cornerstone of human diplomatic strategy. Rather than demonstrating military superiority, they showcased the casual innovation that made humanity dangerous to aggressive neighbors while attractive to potential allies. Former enemies learned that human strength came not from advanced weapons, but from a culture that refused to accept limitations. General Paul Rodriguez established training academies on neutral worlds where species threatened by remaining aggressive empires could learn defensive strategies. The curriculum carefully avoided sharing humanity's most advanced technologies, while providing enough knowledge to level the playing field against traditional conquest-oriented civilizations. We're not trying to arm the galaxy, Rodriguez explained, to a gathering of military leaders from 17 different species. We're teaching you to think like humans. Once you understand our approach to problem-solving, you'll develop your own solutions to defend your peoples. The training programs produced rapid results as former victims of Zephyrian expansion began successfully resisting continued aggression. Bioship adaptive armor proved useless against opponents who had learned to think in terms of unconventional warfare. Plasma weapons designed to overwhelm energy shields failed against enemies who used kinetic impacts and spatial distortions. Within a year of the Kepler 442 battle, 3 Zephyrian frontier fleets had been defeated by coalitions of species. Applying human tactical principles, Emperor Vextal found his empire contracting for the first time in its history as conquered worlds successfully rebelled using strategies learned from human instructors. The Stellar Federation formally requested a mutual defense treaty with Earth, offering to share their advanced manufacturing techniques in exchange for human protection against remaining aggressive neighbors. The Kythera Collective, traditionally isolationist, opened limited diplomatic channels to explore potential scientific collaboration. The galactic balance of power shifted as humanity's reputation spread. Species that had remained neutral during the Zephyrian expansion now sought Earth's protection or alliance. Aggressive empires found themselves increasingly isolated as their traditional victims gained access to effective defensive strategies. 5 years after the battle, Sithron returned to Earth to deliver a formal speech at the United Nations. The former war commander, now serving as a Zephyrian ambassador, addressed the assembly of human leaders and alien representatives. "We came to your space expecting to find another weak species to dominate," he said, his translated words carrying across the assembly hall. "Instead, we discovered teachers who showed us a different way to interact with the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire has begun converting our bioships from weapons of conquest to tools of exploration and scientific research. The transformation wasn't complete or universal. Some Zephyrian factions continued to advocate for aggressive expansion, while other alien empires sought to develop countermeasures against human technologies. However, the fundamental dynamic had changed. Conquest-oriented civilizations could no longer assume that superior firepower guaranteed victory against opponents who thought like humans. Earth became the unofficial capital of a loose confederation, of species committed to mutual defense and scientific advancement. Human colonies spread throughout the galaxy not as conquering forces, but as centers of learning where different species could study human approaches to problem solving. The children who had played in Central Park while Cithron watched grew up in a galaxy where humanity's casual confidence had become the standard for dealing with supposedly impossible challenges. They attended schools where alien instructors taught bioengineering while human professors explain